In this video, we'll try to understand what exactly do we mean by circular dependency, in what kind of situations they arise, and how can we resolve them. So let's first try to define what exactly is circular dependency. Circular dependency is a situation where class library A is trying to use class library B and class library B is trying to use class library A. Now you must be wondering that what kind of situations are those when class libraries would like to use each other. So let me talk about a very normal situation here which arises now and then. Now let's consider the situation of a three-layer architecture. In a three-layer architecture we have user interface, then we have the middle tier, and then we have the data access layer. Now for now let's concentrate on middle tier and the data access layer. So here's a simple solution I have. You can see that I have a very simple middle layer here, and in this middle layer I have this customer class. Okay, and this customer class actually calls up the data access layer, and in the data access layer I have the customer DAL. Okay, so this customer class, you can see that it has an add method, and from the add method it actually goes and creates an object of customer DAL object and calls the add method of the DAL object, and this is my data access layer over here. Right, so very simple project here. The middle tier, which is the customer object, the customer object has an add method. The add method actually calls a customer DAL object. He passes all the values, that is customer code and customer name, and then the DAL object actually goes and adds this to the database. Currently I have not put any code here for database, but let's assume that this is probably filled with entity framework code, or must be it is filled with simple data set or command object code, whatever it is. Okay, and also if you see the solution explorer here, you can see that currently the middle tier is using the customer DAL component, right? So it has to use the customer DAL component, or else it won't be able to create these objects here of customer DAL class, isn't it, right? So you can see the middle tier is using the customer DAL object, and the customer DAL object actually makes all the addition and deletion, or it has all the database code for doing the manipulation, right? Now we would like to go and improvise this code. Improvise this code means, for example, when the middle tier passes data to the data access layer, you can see that it actually uses this variables to pass data. So for example, you can see that the customer data access layer actually takes a variable entries like customer and customer name. It would be great if I can just pass here straightforward the customer class like this, isn't it? So that the complete customer object goes as it is. Now this approach is much better. Why? Because tomorrow, let's say that if you add new properties like, let's say, phone number or pin code, right, you don't need to go and change your add input parameters, right? It's a part of the customer object and it comes as it is. So your interface will not change too much. But in order to implement this, what we need to do is we need to reference the customer library into the data access layer. In other words, what we need to do is we need to go and add the reference of the middle tier to the customer data access layer, because in the middle tier we have the customer object, right? So if you see here, the customer object is currently present in the customer DAL. So if I have to reference this class over here, I need to reference the middle tier, right? But now if I try to do that, let's say if I try to go and add a reference of the middle tier here, you can see that it gives me an error saying that this would cause a circular dependency. Means what? Means your middle tier is already referencing customer DAL. So how can your customer DAL now reference middle tier? That means you are saying that customer DAL will refer middle tier and middle tier will refer customer DAL, which will lead to circular dependency. So now the next question is, how do we go and ensure that this customer object can be used inside customer DAL, and how do we ensure that this circular dependency problem does not occur? One of the proper way of ensuring that you don't have circular dependency is by using interfaces. The two libraries which need to use each other, they can go via an interface. In other words, if I want to really get around this problem, what I need to do is I need to really go and create an interface which actually mimics this customer class. So very quickly, now let me give a solution to this problem. So we'll go ahead and add a new class project okay, a class library saying I customer. This will have interface of customer. So we'll go ahead here and create an interface called as I customer, right? Now it does not look good, right, that your interface name and the namespace name are same, right? So what I'll do is I'll just go and name this as INS customer. So namespace for customer. I know that this naming convention is bad, but fine, just to ensure that the interface name and the namespace name are not same, right? And this interface customer will have the same properties as the customer class, right? Or it will have the same interfaces as the customer class. So this interface will have customer code as well as it will have customer name. So let me just go and build this. Build succeeded. Good. Now the next thing what we'll do is we will reference this I customer in this middle tier, and we will implement this interface I customer onto the customer class. So I'll go and add a reference of this interface customer here, and I will implement this interface here, I customer. So the first thing is we need to go and import that namespace, so INS customer, and I will go and implement this interface here. It has the set and get properties, right? Right, so there it is. We don't even need to do this because already those property names are already implemented here. So I think this will just build up. Right, good. So you can now see that this customer actually implements this I customer. Now the next thing what I'll do is I will go to the data access layer, and I will reference this I customer in the data access layer as well. So I'm going to go and reference this I customer in the data access layer, right? And I'll say here using INS customer, right? And now here what I'll say is that in this add method I would like to get the reference of the customer object. Okay, so I'll say here I cust obj, right? Now from the middle tier what we can do is, because this customer implements this I customer, you can just go ahead and pass the current object over here saying this. And what will happen is, by using polymorphism, or I'll say by using dynamic polymorphism, this customer object will get typecasted to this I customer. So you can now see what has happened is actually your customer data access layer is referencing the I customer, and the middle layer is also referencing the I customer. So the circular dependency is removed now because both of these guys are going via this interface. Okay, so you can now see that you will get a strongly typed object over here, I cust obj dot. You will get all the properties what you need. Okay, and second, this customer data access layer is not referencing the middle tier directly, so even the circular dependency is not happening. Okay, so one of the proper way of removing circular dependency is by using interfaces. So the two parties or two class libraries which wants to communicate to each other, what they can do is they can create an interface like this and talk with each other. With that, both of these class libraries don't have to refer each other physically, so the circular dependency does not happen, and also they are able to communicate with each other. Why? Because they are going via this interface. Now the other way of removing circular dependency is by using events. So the other way would have been that if your middle tier can actually emit out events, and your customer dial can subscribe to those events, then again you can remove circular dependency. But I've always found that going via a common interface is a much structured way as compared to events, because when we actually emit out events, it is not strongly typed. For example, here now you can see that I'm getting a strong type customer object over here. So just summarizing, circular dependency is a situation where one library wants to use the other library, and the other library wants to reference the first library, right? And you can remove circular dependency by using a interface in between. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. In this video we were trying to understand what is circular dependency, in what situation it can arise, and how can we resolve it. Thank you so much.